Hey guys, this is Vanessa Dyer, and I'm the Charlotte, North Carolina-based lifestyle blogger behind thecheekybean.com. With several successful years as a business owner, a first-time mom, and a deep passion for health and wellness, I'm here to share my honest, unfiltered advice on all things motherhood, relationships, travel, and more. So grab a coffee and join the conversation. This is the Cheeky Bean Podcast. Hello and happy Wednesday. Today we are talking about the business of blogging together with my assistant, Kristen Agee. I did a part 1 of this series back in season 1, which was a really popular episode, but it was mostly from my perspective and how I got to where I am today. So we thought it would be fun to give you the ins and outs and a behind the scenes look at what all it entails being on Team TCB from Kristen's point of view. Kristen's been with me for right at about a year now, and this episode literally goes all over the place. We're talking about how we met, what it's like working with me, her day-to-day, random stories along the way, and so much more. We also briefly touch on Kristen's journey with hormones, which ultimately led to a tumor on her pituitary gland. I wanted to bring her on the podcast to give you guys a real-life look at what it's like behind the scenes here. Kristen's a girl's girl. She's hilarious. She's witty. You guys are going to absolutely love listening to her. So if you're looking for a more lighthearted episode, I think you'll enjoy this one. It's one you're going to want to grab a cocktail to, maybe listen to while you're getting ready, and I really think you guys are going to feel like you're hanging out with us. So with that, let's get right into it. Okay, so I am here with my assistant, videographer, photographer, creative director. She wears many hats, Kristen Agee. And I did a part 1 of blogging prior to Kristen and I working together last year. It was really popular and it did really well. Since then, Kristen has joined my team. The team has also really expanded. So we thought it would be fun to have Kristen on the podcast to give a behind the scenes perspective of what goes on at the Cheeky Bean on a day-to-day basis.
That's right. Yes. Behind the scenes. What an intro. Okay.
Yeah. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you. I'm excited. Can't wait to spill all
this
the
is
tea.
going to be fun. Yeah. So Kristen and I are also really good friends. So this podcast episode may or may not go off on a tangent in many different directions, but we'll try to keep it streamlined as best as we can. But so I thought it was only natural or fair to talk about how we met.
Yes.
And Kristen refers to it as serendipitous.
It really was.
It's a good story.
Yeah. So I, like most people, I just slid into Vanessa's DMs. I had already been following you, which backstory, we also went to Clemson. We went to Clemson at the same time, but didn't know each other. But that's another story. So anyways, I messaged you on IG and I was like, hey, I do this thing, styled shoot. I know you're local. I know you probably get a million messages, but if this hits right and you want to do this, let's do it. And I feel like your followers might think this is fun. And so you, for whatever reason, took me up on it.
Yeah, which you guys know from the Meryl Balcom episode is actually very rare. I get a lot of DMs, a lot of people asking to grab coffee or meet me for whatever reason. And normally it's to pick my brain about blogging or, how to start a business and things like that. And I don't know why I read Kristen's message and I was like, yeah, why not? This sounds so fun. Let's do it. So we met up for the styled shoot.
Which, by the way, you had to come to my home. So you were like,
oh my God.
It's not like I have an office.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So you roll up, you're like, I've come out, I'm like, hey girl, what's up? Covered in bulldog hair. You're pristine. I'm like, nice to meet you. Come on in.
Yes.
Just
and by the way, I'm voice memoing Meryl on my way to Kristen's house. And I'm like, hey, so I'm going to this styled shoot at this girl named Kristen's house. I've met her one time at coffee and I think it's okay. I think it's going to be fine. But if you don't hear from me in an hour, I need you to turn location services on and I need you to check on me.
She's got me trapped.
I was like, I may or may not be getting kidnapped. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, but it ended up being totally fine. Funny story, we never ended up posting the content from the styled shoot because Kristen then became...
I was juggling a lot at the time. I taught special ed full time, and then I also worked for Metabolic and did styled shoots separately. So I was just juggling a lot of different things. And then I kind of told you hey, this is so great. We have this fun content. We shot photos and video. We did 3 different looks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, don't share it because I don't have the capacity right now. In the event that even 5 people reached out and said, I would just want to do a fun birthday shoot or I want new branding. It was just, I wouldn't be able to accommodate. So I was like, let's just hang on to it. And then it turned into a year later, we still haven't shared
never posted it. Which, by the way, it's bomb.
I know.
We did like a
so
Kim
fun.
Kardashian look and nailed it.
Yep. We did a lot of inspired. And then we did like a fun, like Hailey Bieber moment in that like bodega type store. It was really fun. But we were also super sweaty. But point being, we never shared it. And then you kind of were like, hey, like I'm about to post this on socials. Like I'm looking for someone kind of a creative to help me with my campaigns as things pick up in the fall. Would this be something you're interested in?
Yeah.
And when I reached out to you, I wasn't even thinking this. I thought like, if anything, if we got together, it'd be like a one-off, you know?
Right.
And then all of a sudden I was like, I mean, sure. Like, what does that look like? And then all of a sudden we're, you know, making charcuterie boards. Yeah. So here we are.
I know. It really was interesting because it's hard to find somebody that you vibe with really well right off the jump.
Yeah.
And after even after coffee, like we went to Undercurrent, we're sitting there at coffee. I'm trying to figure out like what a styled shoot looks like because I've never done that because I style my own outfits, you know? So I'm like, how does this really work for me? But we went all over the map. Somehow at coffee, we ended up down the hormone tangent. We're wait, we both have these hormone issues. And like, we just clicked.
Yeah, it was like parallel.
Yes.
Like all these different scenarios. I was like, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Right. So, and then we did the styled shoot and the content was badass. And I just like loved our time together.
Yeah.
And I felt like when I left, I was like, wow, I could have talked to her for like 2 more hours. And we were together for like 3 or 4 hours that day.
That was a long ass day.
Yeah.
But I also felt super energized. And I feel like whenever we get together, which you have spoken to too, where you're like, man, before we were working together, it was just like me or you maybe supplement with photographers or whatever you needed for like X campaign. But we work together on such a regular basis that it's like the days will fly by. But then also the other day when we were at Nordstrom, we were like, woo, we are spin, girl. So it's just like fun to have like in a kind of like very alone type job, or it can be. It's fun to like have connection where you're not going into an office, but we like make our own, you know?
Right. Yeah. It can definitely, in both our roles, be really isolating if you don't have people that you're like, you know, meeting up with on a daily basis or even in like your position, there are people who just naturally aren't great in front of the camera. And then it's like pulling teeth to get them to pose and like get into it.
Yeah. If you can't vibe with different people or if you like acknowledge like at the very beginning that they're stiff and uncomfortable, if you can't make it work, at the end of the day, the product is going to be awful. And that's like on you. So like you got to be like doing clown work to make sure that luckily you're very comfortable in front of the camera, but not everyone is. Yeah. So it's like a very important thing to be like a people, like very personal and like pull it out of them.
Yes.
So
yeah, I think us working together is very easy.
Yeah,
it never feels hard. Like I'm never like, oh, Kristen's coming over. Oh my gosh, I never dread it.
No,
I'm always excited. Same. When you leave, I always have more energy than like when like we'll both be texting each other and we're like, oh man, I'm dragging. Like, got to get a second coffee today. But then as soon as we get 2 hours into it, and then we're like, wait, what else should we do today?
Yeah,
like, what else do we have?
We got to maximize, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's something about you. You're super professional. So even though like you might not be like A1. It'll be like, well, we're going to turn it on. Like, because even if I'll give like, all right, well, if Monday doesn't work, like if you're really not feeling or X, Y, and Z or something came up, I'm like, I can make Tuesday work, but it's like, you'll honor the time that you agree to. Right. And I feel like both of us will be like, if we're not feeling it, we're just like, put a face on, here we go.
Yeah.
But like to your point, once we're together, I feel like the energy's just up and we're just like, you know, going wild.
We call it speedballing sometimes.
We're just cracked
in the
out
most
the house.
innocent way. We're both like, I'm ready to go. Let's go.
There's like from my house to her house, there's been 13 voice memos that I've sent.
And then like sometimes we have to travel to a location for whatever we're doing and like we have to be in separate cars and we're still voice memoing like we're in the car together.
Can't miss a beat.
On the way to whatever we're doing. Like we're gonna see each other in 10 minutes.
It's like, but one more thing. Hold on. Did you think it was weird that
I just had a thought? So
it's like a constant shared note. And I wish, man, that time when you broke down at Publix with the cheese man. And I didn't save that voice memo. Oh, I had this genius idea that I was going to like do this compilation blooper reel. Man. And I was going to have like, I need to start saving all of our voice memos in the event that happens again, which I hope it doesn't for your sake because you were very upset. But Vanessa started spiraling. It was a bunch of different things, but the catalyst was this very angry cheese man.
I don't even remember why I was upset. I remember the whole thing happening, but like, what was I? It couldn't have been that.
It wasn't the cheese. It was other things.
Yes.
Once we dove in.
The cheese man yelled at me on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the voice memo I received was like, and it was just like melting down. And then what I really want to do is save it and then use that as like the intro to our blooper reel. I think that'd be just gold.
It would be
like,
hilarious. We should
scratch
absolutely
record
do
and
that.
then it's just chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I forgot about that. We had a campaign with Publix that we had to go shoot at Publix.
Yep.
And this specific brand was launching at Publix. It was a type of cheese. It was supposed to be in the like specialty cheese section.
Yep.
Kristen and I had gone there. They didn't have the cheese. So then of course, we're reaching back out to the brand manager. We're like, hey, you sent us here. There's no cheese here.
Yeah, and
they have no idea what we're talking about.
Right. We went twice. Did we not have to we went to Publix.
We did.
Twice. And then
Right.
I actually feel like we went to 2 different locations, but maybe I'm misunderstanding.
No, we did.
Forgetting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
we went to great lengths to track this cheese down, and
We did.
they
We did.
were not nice about it. When
Yeah.
it's like,
So then the second time I was like, let me just call and make sure, because this brand manager is telling me like, it's there. We know it's there. So I'm like, you know what? I was like, this happened once already. This Publix was not close by. So from a time standpoint, not ideal.
not efficient.
So I was like, I'm just going to call the cheese department.
This is
and
where it started.
Clarify that this cheese is there. In fact, there, because we have 500 other things to do today. And
Yeah.
like, I don't have time to waste 45 minutes in drive time. So I call up there, and this general cheese manager is so snippy with me on the phone, and actually tells me that he's currently at lunch, so he cannot check on the cheese situation. And I was like, okay, I'm so sorry to bother you on your lunch. Is there anybody else who could possibly help me out? I'm slated to be there at this time.
Right.
And we're coming up on that time. I just want to verify, that we're not wasting our time. And he was so incredibly rude
For
to
no
me,
reason.
like yelling at me on the phone, and was like, basically just said it wasn't his problem. And
That's how you do business, folks.
Right. And so I think I was probably already like emotional, having a bad day.
There were other things that
Yeah.
led up to, you're not that sensitive
Right.
at all. But there were a lot of things that.
I normally am just like,
you're kind of an ice queen
whatever,
sometimes. You're like, you're like
yeah.
business cheese.
I'm like, okay, great, we'll show up. But instead, I'm voice memo. I hang up with him. I'm voice memoing Kristen on the way there, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to the cheese. We're just gonna have to. He yelled at me. Oh my god.
I was listening to this like, this is gold.
Yeah.
This is so good. But fast forward 30 minutes, we're behind the cheese counter, and we're with the guy with the hat.
And it was so fun.
We were opening boxes. We were like, we're tracking this cheese down.
They literally had us behind the cheese counter unpacking boxes, because it had come in on one of the 18-wheelers that day. It wasn't unpacked yet. And like the guy working the cheese counter that
God
day was
bless
an
him.
absolute gem.
Sweet, sweet man.
So
he spent
sweet.
about an extra unnecessary 30 minutes in doing a tasting profile with us about the cheese.
Yeah.
And really now at this point, we're an hour behind. So we're like,
Yes.
thank you so much. I look over at Vanessa, and you're like, okay, like who's going to wrap this up? Because
Yeah.
we're about to be pulling wine from the shelves to do a pairing. Like that's where
Exactly.
he was going.
Yeah, it turned
He was
in-
really sweet though.
He was so sweet, but did not understand what was going on whatsoever. But that's a story.
The
for
moral of the
another
story
day.
is we send a lot of voice memos. So
We do. So I think the number one question that people want to know is, working at the Cheeky Bean or with me different than what you thought it would be?
I didn't have like a lot of experience outside of working with you. Like all I knew was like shooting content for the gym, doing styled shoots, doing branded shoots and things like that. So I really didn't know. I honestly probably thought it was more like, okay, what does Vanessa want to do today and what should we shoot? When really it's a lot of it, all of it is dictated by what campaigns are we working around.
Right.
And it's less about what you just find interesting, to the point where like we talked about the other day, you're like, I need a pause on the campaign so that I can allow more time for creative things that I just want to shoot.
Right.
And if you don't like allot that time, it's just not going to happen unless I'm living in the mother-in-law suite. Like it's just, we're not going to find time.
About.
We did talk about. But yeah, and I guess I just thought it was more like, nurturing your brand in the sense of like, what styling do you want to do? What outfits do you want to put together? What fitness do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
And less of like, okay, what campaigns align with you and what do we need to shoot?
Right.
So that was probably, I didn't fully realize. And then working with you in the fall, while also managing it full-time teaching, while also having other obligations outside of working with you, wow, what a
it's
overcommitment, should we say?
Yeah.
Because your fall schedule was
insane.
Yeah. And it almost gives me a little bit of like anxiety
It's
to
coming.
think about.
It's
exactly.
coming.
But then I'm like, okay, I'm not teaching anymore. Like that's time back. Like just remain calm, because it would be like 7:45 to 3:45 school, get to your house by, or actually I guess I'd always leave a little early, get to your house by 3:45 till 5:30 or something. Traffic, then I'd edit until like 10, because like if we didn't stay on it, not that you were like, get it to me by tonight, but if you didn't stay on it, there was just one more thing to roll over to the next day.
Right. And then it just all starts piling up.
Yeah.
And then that becomes really
chaos.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just think I didn't fully realize. I mean, I definitely didn't realize you're like the whole back end of, you know, like the campaigns and how those get say yes or no to, just based on like your general interest and what you already are using.
Right.
You know?
Right. So I think a lot of people don't realize that either. Like it's a very structured schedule with deadlines that have to be met.
I think people think what I maybe thought originally was like, oh, Vanessa gets to choose what she wants to wear and shoot and then pick locations, when really it's like, no, we've got a full timeline.
Right.
And, you know.
Yeah. And then based off of that, the time that's left, that's where we create the content that we, you know, really want to create, that is just organic.
Yeah.
Creating outfits, styling outfits, vlogs, travel content.
Yeah.
But
or just like being able to sit down and be like, well, what do you think would be fun to showcase X, Y, or Z? Or this is like a fun video concept. Should we try shooting it?
Right.
Like I don't know the last time we got to just create without it being like, which I really enjoy having like a campaign and be like, how do we make this creative? That's super fun. But just in terms of just like an open, what should we make? What should we do? Like we haven't had that in a while. I feel like when we were in Turks and Caicos, shooting just like very briefly before we started like doing nothing essentially at the beach. Yeah. Like that was, I feel like we were so excited just to shoot the outfit.
Yes.
And I mean, it was like maybe not even 15 minutes. And we were like, okay, cute, let's go.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I'm also like I think you're like me. I'm very inspired by a different surrounding.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when you're just stuck in Charlotte, North Carolina with the same backdrops, with the same like locations and stuff like that, it gets very monotonous and a little bit boring. And so I think we really thrive when we're like, wow, look at all these beautiful like situations that we could shoot this outfit for and you can style this look for. And like, I really thrive in that scenario.
Yeah. I think we both equally get just as excited when a photo is bomb and like the movement looks good.
Yeah.
Like I'm just as hype as you are, and you're the one that's photographed.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, that is so good. Like, how are we gonna choose? Your legs look so long.
Yeah, like Kristen is the ultimate hype woman. She's like, oh my God, wait till you see your legs in this. Like, you got to see this. Hold on, come here. I'm like,
look, not even edited.
Yeah, not
just like so proud.
She's like, this doesn't even need an edit.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
just right to IG.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into like the back end of it, especially campaign wise, which I know I touched on in season 1.
Yeah.
But that is, you primarily as an influencer make the bulk of your income by working on these brand deals, and then affiliate income by platforms like to Know It or Amazon Associates, things like that. And so because it is my full-time job, those have to absolutely be a priority. And then I take a lot of pride in delivering like the best, most high quality possible content that we can create. Because if I'm working with these brands, they're brands that I believe in, that I truly use. A lot of times they're like mega sized brands like Kellogg's, that you don't want to make mad and you don't want to disappoint. Like I want them to receive our content in the Google Drive and be blown away so that they want to work on other products together.
And once I realized that you were that type of perfectionist, and I was like, okay, if Vanessa likes the content that we're generating, like that says something, because she runs a tight ship for like stamp of approval.
Yes.
I remember the first time we were together in the red dress up on those stairs. Yep. And we probably shot the back of that dress no less than 900 photos. And I was like, okay, like my girl still isn't sure if she likes it. But like once we get in the groove of things, and also like
it's a blessing and a curse, I will say.
Yes. I mean, it makes you very good at your job, and it also makes me better because I'm like, okay, well, sort of. You also can be too harsh on yourself. Like we all can. But if a brand likes what we do, then I know it's like, okay, it's solid. It's good because Vanessa liked it. Like I'm a reflection of her. We came up with this together. Like it's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's fun now that we're working together too. Because in this job, to the point, we were talking about isolation. when you work in corporate America or you work for somebody else, there's usually a quarterly review or a yearly review, and you have a boss and they give you feedback.
Right.
In this job, there really is little to no feedback.
Right.
And so when we do get feedback and it's awesome, it's so fun to get to share that with the person who helped you create that content.
Yeah.
And it's like such a breath of fresh air, because a lot of times these brands, this is what they're doing all day long. They have, 100 girls on the same campaign,
Right.
or 100 influencers. And it's kind of transactional where they're like, great, thank you. Everything looks great. It's approved to post. Whereas then you have these other situations where, like my dream brand we created for Givenchy, and like I got that campaign and I was bouncing off the walls. I was like, I'm so pumped. Like, this is a dream brand. I was like, and I mean, talk about pressure. I was like, Kristen, it has to be perfect. Like,
and I feel like it was.
It was. And they did have a very clear outline of what they were looking for, but we both very much understood that vision. And I mean, we executed on it.
It was literally flawless.
Yes.
I mean, to your point about having the guidelines and things, but at the same time, like they sought you out because they were like, okay, she checks this part of our brand that represents us. And then they also were like, we like all the cuts in this version of this video.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, you like a lot of cuts. So like we knew
Yes.
how to translate everything that they were like seeking, but then,
Yes.
Yeah,
they provided examples and they were like, this is exactly what we're looking for. We like how this was edited. And
they provided examples from your own page.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Which is like, perfect.
Yeah, we delivered that content, and the response that we got, I could have died.
Yeah,
I literally was like, I'm gonna fall out of my chair reading this email. This is so incredible. Like they were so complimentary of us, and I'm immediately like screenshotting, sending to Chris, and I'm like, look at this. This is crazy.
When I was editing it, I was like, this is gonna be so good. And mind you, we overshot.
Yes, we definitely did.
A lot.
Which
so
we also do often.
Yeah. It was like 175 clips for a 25-second reel
yes.
that I'm like going through like which one's perfect, but
I know
it was perfect.
And I'm over here being like, oh my God, no, we can see my bra strap. We can't use that clip. Like they're going to say something about my bra strap.
Mind
like,
you,
little
you're
tiny
mid-twirl. Like there's so many other things to look at. But I was like, okay, if she thinks they're going to have some sort of comeback on that, we got another one.
Yes.
Because we took 40 of them.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which that was a monumental like highlight of my career because they came back. They absolutely loved it. And then
they gave you more work.
They gave me more work based off of that, which was, that's the ultimate goal, is to get to like partner with these dream brands that you use, you believe in, and you can do it long term and like continue to have that challenge of like every project with them has been different, very different. Like we're now on Sephora's website.
Right. Totally different concept.
Right. Like
no cuts.
Never even got, put on my Instagram feed or my TikTok. It's literally, it lives on Sephora's website. But like, what a cool thing to get to do, like they're like, hey, we have this project. It's a little bit different than what you're used to doing, but like, do you think you can do it? It's going to live on Sephora's website for our Givenchy products. And
we're like, I think we can do it.
We absolutely can do that. Yes. And if we don't know how to do it, we will figure it out.
We shot that. And then, I showed Vanessa, like we always do like a sample, like, okay, this is what you look like.
We should post that.
We shot it. And then you were like, mind you, how long do you think it took us the first go? Maybe a half hour?
Oh, I don't know.
And then you're like, ooh, I feel like the lighting could be better. So she's like, run it back.
Yeah,
so
we had to
start over. But you know what? Hey, we had time.
And then we had a hornet situation.
Oh my God.
Where these hornets were like, we didn't know where they were coming from, but they were coming
full-ass hornet nest.
Inside. Right, like these hornets are flying right past my face while we were filming this. So like Kristen has these clips where I'm like,
and then she's full scream mode as if someone came in with a knife.
The chair I'm sitting in is going flying. I'm literally running through the mother-in-law suite.
I wish there was a camera on me being like, you good? And she's like, like just losing it.
It was terrifying.
I was like, oh, okay, it's a hornet.
Yeah, but there was a hornet's nest like somewhere in there. It was terrifying. So that's actually really funny.
Yeah, maybe we'll pull that up.
Yeah, and then your clip of me where we're like 4 hours into this thing, and she's like,
I was like, that's literally perfect.
Oh my God, we're not recording, and I'm like, I have like my camera face on, and immediately as soon as she said that, it was
like
just
you were gonna kill me.
Yeah, the death stare. I was like, you're lying.
Yeah,
and we'll post it. It's really funny. We'll put it on stories.
It is funny. Yeah, I think something that people, like if you're a creative, you know that like it's something really personal, and so when you don't get feedback or you do get feedback, or even like I feel like you also are a creative. So it's like, it's so personal when you give an idea or you cut something up or you make you make an outfit, whatever that avenue may be. But then when people love it, you're like, yes. And then when there's feedback, you're like, oh, like that kind of hurt my feelings.
I don't know if this is just like a character flaw. I know, nobody's perfect, but I take things really personally. And so when there is feedback, I take so much pride in my work that it really does sting, because I'm like, but the way we delivered it to you is so good. And like, I know we create everything with my audience in mind. So a lot of times it's like, you get this brief, you get this outline, and it's like, this is what we're looking for. And then Kristen and I sit down together and we say, all right, how does this storyline fit in with my audience? How is it true to my brand? How is it true to how we actually use this product? And how is it going to be the most engaging for people to watch?
Right.
And that's how we create the product. And so when brands come back and they have these like tiny little, it's usually like really nitpicky small things that aren't going to enhance or change the engagement or like make it better, honestly.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating because I am really prideful. And so it's kind of just, we do things with the best possible outcome in mind from the forefront.
Right. I think the one example that was really just the worst would be when like we came up with this whole concept that we knew would do well. We filmed it on the front end for said concept. We had full reign to do whatever we wanted to highlight and showcase. And then they said, no, none of that works. And then completely flipped it on us.
Right.
And I was like, wait, well, back when you said we had full reign, it's like, how do you not think that Vanessa and co know what's best? Like, how could, like, I understand what you're trying to highlight, but you should have communicated that on the front. Like, I just feel like that, why don't they put more trust in like what you're already doing? But there must be other people who don't do it full speed like you, or like what we try to put into the product. And that's why they have to probably have all those safety nets,
guidelines and stuff. Yeah, it can definitely be frustrating, but at the end of the day, we always get through it and move on. And we also learn like, okay, that's not something that we want to do again. Like in that situation, it was definitely a big learning lesson for us where we were like, we have spent so much time and energy and
it wasn't even local.
Yeah. To make this what we think would do great and for it not to be received well, it's a learning lesson. And we always say like, not everything can be a banger. Not everything can be a win. No. So that's just not reality, but that's just a piece of the business that I think a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
And then I also want to talk about, I'm going to have you kind of just explain like what all you do for me. But I, in season 1, kind of talked about everything just from my perspective and how the business works and how I got there. So I also thought one of the questions in my question box on stories yesterday was like, how many people do you have working for you now? And so I have Kristen, who's in person with me every week.
Yep.
And then we have Kristen 2.0 here now, who is our podcast producer. And
shout out to Kristen 2.0.
Shout out. She's here in the room. She's phenomenal. Best decision I ever made. And then we have somebody down in Atlanta who does all of my graphics. And then I also have a full-time person on my team who manages all of my work. So she looks at all my contracts. She does all the negotiations. She manages the timelines. She is the liaison between me and the brand. And she's like the first line of defense basically for everything. So shout out to Chloe.
Yeah.
She's like
she's the rock. You know what I mean?
Yes. She's also the person who hears all of my like backlash when I'm not happy with the feedback. And then she's also my biggest cheerleader. So that's kind of what all goes into the back end of the company and how it runs and how we do things every day. But I'll let you kind of take it from here and you can talk about your day-to-day.
Okay. Well, it really depends on the day.
I know.
So
it is different.
Day-to-day is very different.
Yep.
But things that we do, I mean, when we get like a campaign or a product, et cetera, that we're, okay, what do we need to generate to make this engaging, or how do we work within the structure of what they gave us to make it like the most like the Cheeky Bean brand. So we do a lot of like creative brainstorming, directing, things like that. I also we do photography, video, full blown videography. We just went to shoot some new branding photos and video at the Frame. And those turned out flawless.
Yes. We're working
We could have been there for 3 hours.
We could have been. Yeah. So I'm coming out with a brand new website. We're doing a rebrand for the website, which is very much due. My website is outdated. I just haven't touched it in a very long time. And I'm super excited to see how that turns out. So Kristen helped me come up with some new branding images for the website. It's going to be super user-friendly. Like, I cannot wait for you guys to see it.
It's going to be seriously so beautiful and definitely elevated. So I think it matches like the new Cheeky Bean.
Yeah. I think my current website is just, it represents me in a much younger phase of life. And this new rebrand is kind of representative of like all the offshoots that have come up over the years. Like we have a podcast now. I'm coming out with a product, which I haven't told anybody yet. That's in the works. That's coming this fall. You know, Johnny Fly sunglasses. I have a fitness program. And so like my current website does not encompass any of that.
Honestly, same. But
you're in the same boat with your website.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to kind of deliver a better user experience and
just showcase like where you are now. Right. I mean, like with anything, you evolve over time. We were talking about it the other day. And so if it's 10 years ago, you haven't really touched it, then obviously you're a different person 10 years later, even on 6 months, but we can't be updating websites every 6 months. But, and then I will like sometimes give you like caption or like witty voiceover recommendations.
Yes. I
don't know what's the best way to describe
like copywriting.
Okay. Yeah, totally.
Well, one of my least favorite parts of the job, and I think it's my least favorite because once you've
done it for so
many years, it's really hard to keep being creative and coming up with different ways to say things, is coming up with captions and voiceovers. Yeah. And so Kristen is very witty and she hasn't had to do this for the last 7 years. So a lot of times she has like fresh eyes and a fresh brain on something that I'm pretty much feeling brain dead about.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, I mean, you can't be hitting on everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
when you have your days where you feel really creative and then you have days where you're just like, it's not there. Like I need a me day. I need a reset. Yeah. And so it's so awesome to have somebody like you on the team who can be like, this is what I think it should say. And then I usually take that, put a spin on it, and I'm like, love it, done. Yeah, perfect. Totally. Makes my life so much easier.
Makes it like, if you have the framework and you can just turn it more into like how you talk versus me, then it's like win-win. You don't have to like take it from the ground up, you know? So man, those days when you're brain dead and you're trying to do something creative, it's truly the worst. Like I'll be staring at a video being like, okay, I have to edit this. And it's like, I'll waste 8 hours when it will usually just take me 1 hour, but I'm just like staring at it like, oh boy.
Well, I thought something that like really resonated with me that Meryl was saying, she now has, you know, this big corporate job that she left Ally and she's working at Avid Exchange. And she was saying that the creatives at Avid Exchange, their return to office is very different than the tech side of Avid Exchange because creatives burn out so quickly and you can't be creative all the time without rest days, basically.
And that's something that I've learned because, you know, when I make videos, I am so motivated by when I like the space that I'm in when I shoot is really important. So if I know that we have like a really big shoot for where it's like the full videography like plan, right?
Yeah.
I need to make sure that I'm like in the best position possible to be my best version because the way I shoot is so different. Like for the example of when I shoot at Mad, like if I've just been at school for 8 hours and then I go to shoot the 4:30 and I'm just like been around students who STEM all day, it's just a very like audio sensory place to work.
Right.
And then I'm shooting and you can just tell I'm exhausted. Like the it just doesn't hit the same.
Right.
But like with anything, you can't have every video and everything you produce be flames. Like you got to have some that are just more even keel to make the other ones be bangers. You know what I mean? But luckily for you and I, like every single one is. So.
We try. But I think that's relative in any job, any position. Like your work is never always going to be 110%. As much as you want it to be and you give that effort all the time. Yeah. It's physically impossible to like always hit perfectly.
Yeah. And
it's just you would be like a different specimen if you could do that.
That's Kristen AI. You know what I mean? Like she will be doing that.
Chat GPT. Yeah. So I think the other thing too that you do for me sometimes that I've had a hard time, a lot of influencers actually give this role up to somebody else, but I've had a very hard time kind of releasing the reins on is posting on stories. But like if we have an event where I'm the talent.
Yes, right.
Like the TikTok audio.
Yeah, yes.
It's really hard for me to be like, the expectation is that we're live posting through the event, and it's really hard for me to do that and like be heads down in my phone, but also be participating in the event and talking to people and doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So Kristen will go with me, and it's actually her posting stories on my Instagram account for me so that I can continue doing what I'm there to do.
Right.
Which has been super helpful. But I know a lot of influencers actually have someone who posts like full time on their stories. So
Girl, don't look at me.
I know. I think I have a hard time like giving that piece of the job to somebody else, because there are so many issues with like accounts getting hacked and just security issues.
Yeah.
And because this is my full-time job, if something like that were to happen, I mean, it literally takes your entire account down.
Yeah.
So
we can't be having that.
Right. It's always me in DMs. It's always me on Instagram. It's always me on stories. Like you're talking directly to me. But I know that has streamlined processes for a lot of people because I take the weekends off. And so when, you have somebody who posts for you over the weekends, you can still have that time off, but your business isn't taking a back seat. And with Instagram and the algorithm,
we need Instagram to do stories, like plan to
like
post on
scheduled story. Yeah, I agree. I feel like that should be next. Like you can schedule everything else. That should be the next thing they roll out.
You know why they're not doing it? It's because they want us always on it. So they're like, here, we're going to have you chain link to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they want the user to be on their app as
all the time.
long as possible. That's literally how it works. But it's, I've just been like, it's okay. Like it's all right to take the weekends off. Like for my mental health and for my family, it's super important to me to be present. And I came to terms with that a really long time ago. And it's like, it works for me. I love turning it off, at the end of the day on Friday, and Monday I just pick up with where I'm at. Yeah.
I don't know what the gain is to be 110% accessible and like what that would do to you and, on the flip side. So I think that even though what you share on Instagram is a reflection of your day to day in your life, but it's not 110% of it, but like sharing the weekends or not sharing, I mean, I don't know. Like, does that really take a huge hit? Probably not. So it's kind of like,
it's
do
fine.
its best. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you see a little bit less of like my personal life because a big portion of that takes place on the weekends, seeing as, my husband has a traditional 9 to 5.
Right.
Liam's with the nanny during the day or he's at school. But I think it's okay. Like, it's just a healthy balance. And that's really important. And that's what's working for you. In any job, right? Like, if I was still working at Insight Global, like I had the weekends off. So those are boundaries that I've set that like really worked for me. I just, I can't give that portion up.
No, I'm okay with that actually, Vanessa.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out structure too and boundaries, but I feel like for someone who's new to this, I've been doing a decent job with boundaries just because that's who I am, like, as a person.
Right.
But it is hard because like similar to you, I don't want to disappoint if I'm like, I'm simply not going to do that. I'm like, could I do it? Yeah. But am I going to make myself available and bend my back over to do it? No.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So you just have to like weigh those out and bend when you can.
Yes. Yeah. And for reference, so Kristen was working at school.
Yep.
From
7:45 to, I would always leave a little early to 3:15. I was like dipping with the students in carpool. I'm like, let's go later, guys. We're out of here.
So she's doing that every day of the week. And then she was doing this, styling and helping other brands out with videography and helping me after school. So very similar story where like the side hustle now has turned into something full-time for you, which I have been like, thank God I need more of you. There's not enough hours in a day.
I know. It was like the fall really was just, I can't believe I just had my blinders on and I was like, let's grind it out because one, I enjoy it.
Right.
And two, I like love creating so much and it gives me energy. So even though, I'm getting less hours of sleep, but I'm so energized by it. And I don't mind like staying up and editing. Cause like when you know when you see the vision, it's just easier to like, you can just edit quickly. You know what I mean? When you're like so jazzed and ready to go. But then I realized like, okay, I've got myself into a predicament.
Yeah.
So I had to like go to school after like the whole holiday break and be like, here's my proposed new schedule. Are you guys in or what?
Yeah.
And then so I got to scale back hours at school because they were so flexible. And then that gave us more time on like Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for half of a day. So it's just been like a slow, okay, less school, more Vanessa, and now we're done with school.
And now we're done with school, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
And I think people also don't understand influencing and blogging has seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so traditionally January and August are the slowest months of the year. And then the spring, summer, fall, winter is pretty busy, but the bulk of the busyness happens in the fall because holidays ramping up.
Yep.
Brands start holiday really early.
Yep.
Like you'll start to see holiday
like September.
Pushes. Yeah,
like,
September.
hey, this is what we're looking for. And you're like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, it's like, I mean,
we're putting Christmas trees up in July,
I think
babe.
last year somebody asked me to put my Christmas tree up in September, and Shane was like, absolutely not.
That's why we need to have like a set where we're like, okay, we've got the Christmas tree
we need a set.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the fall just gets insane, and it literally does not slow down until
we actually thought
Christmas.
it was, but we thought that.
Yeah.
You're like, don't worry. Like as soon as we get through holiday, like January is so slow. And then it wasn't. So I was like, like she's lying.
Yeah.
So.
So yeah, that's traditionally true. However, in January, we launched my collaboration with Johnny Fly.
Right, which was
amazing, but also a big undertaking with, creating content around that.
Yeah.
The launch party, meeting them and going through like picking out all the stuff. And then we also launched the West Kept Secret Fitness Program.
Oh my gosh,
so 2 huge projects that were very time consuming that both went live literally within, I think, 2.5 weeks of each other.
I would advise us to not do that again.
Right,
if you can make that happen, it was a little much, but we can.
I know. Normally I'm like, oh, January is such a nice reset after such a crazy like holiday season. And it just, honestly, we've been going full steam, like pedal to the metal.
Seriously.
We haven't had a break. So
it really has been like, I thought, ours would kind of drop off a little. And I was like, no, we're still in it. Here we go. And that's where the anxiety comes for the fall. And I'm like, okay, we're going to have to stay.
Just popping all the magnesiums.
Yeah.
We'll get through it. It'll be fun.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
We always do though.
So I want to shift gears. I know that, we're talking about the business of blogging and whatnot, but we also shared that when we first sat down and we met, we kind of had the same like hormone issues. And I know my audience has kind of experienced similar things, but your story is really unique.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you wanted to kind of share about everything.
The tumor. The tumor. Yes. So I, was just like, I noticed my period went away like 2019, which is like forever ago. Yeah. And I kind of just attribute it to, there were a lot of like personal transitions in my life at that time. And so I thought maybe it was just like my body's way of either decompressing stress or handling stress. I wasn't really quite sure, but I just stopped getting a period. I mean, it was like a slow stop. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like abruptly like, and she's gone. But, and so I would like talk to friends about it and be like, I just like don't get a period anymore. And I remember I was working with a nutritionist coach, and she was like, yeah, so like no 30-year-old just doesn't get a period. Like you need to.
Yeah, she's like, that's not normal.
That's not normal. Like she always says like your period is like your report card for women. Like, do you get it? Is it healthy? Like, okay, we're moving in the right direction. So I was like, okay, I need to seek answers and also I was so tired. Like I would want to crawl under my desk right after lunch. Like I couldn't keep my eyes open. I feel bad for my students because I just wasn't present. I mean, I feel bad anyone who was in my life at the time because I was just like a puddle of a person, just crawling. Yeah. But so I started working with a naturopath, and we did a bunch of tests, which you and I have compared notes and talked about. And that was a interesting journey because she basically was like, you're in like pre-menopausal state. You have no cortisol. You have no. So I did the Dutch test, and all those things came back. And she was like, well, we can rework this. It'll just take time. And I was like, okay. Cause when she initially laid everything out, I was like, wait, before you continue, can this be reversed? Because like what you're saying is extremely daunting. She's like, no, it can. It's just going to take time. And I was like, okay, like how much time? But whatever. So, went on that journey for like almost a year with her. Okay. And then she finally was like, hey, it's really concerning that so my prolactin was really high. it was like 115. And when I first did blood work, it was like 75 and it just kept getting higher.
Right.
And she was like,
and
okay.
you said prolactin that's the hormone that you have when you're breastfeeding.
Correct.
Yeah.
So your prolactin is extremely high when you're breastfeeding,
Yep.
like off the charts, super high. So obviously I was not breastfeeding. So I'm like, why is my prolactin so high? And so she was like, okay, your prolactin's going in the wrong direction. And I think you need to go see an endocrinologist. I think you might have a tumor on your pituitary gland. Now, prior to her telling me this, I had done some research as you and I were texting, and I was like,
yeah, she's, well,
I basically
you're hitting me with the
gaslit
voice
you.
memo, and you're like, she's saying this, and like my prolactin's high, and I'm like, immediately, I go to Google, and I'm like, why would one person's prolactin be high? And I'm like,
so
I'm like, have you ever wondered if you have a tumor? Like that's what Google is telling me.
So I was basically just trying to gaslight Vanessa and be like, you're insane. I definitely don't have a tumor, you crazy person, because I obviously didn't want to have to come to terms with neurosurgery.
Right.
So I was like seeing these images of like a knife going through your nose straight to your brain to remove the pituitary tumor. And I was like, that's not me. Like that is something I'm not going to identify with. So I basically was like, no, that's not what it is. And you're like, okay, that's what it could be though. And I was like, yeah, it could be, but that's not me.
I really think you should just like go get it checked. Like, let's just rule it out. Like,
and
this is what everything on Google is telling me. And Dr. Google has honestly not led me wrong in the past.
So
I know you're not supposed to do that, but
I was still like white knuckling delusion. And I was like, no, it's not me though. Like that doesn't apply to me.
Right.
So I go to the endocrinologist, which that whole story of getting into the endocrinologist was a shit show. Insane. But he was very nice. And so he was very matter of fact. I explained all my symptoms. He does all these different exams. And he's like, yeah, so I think you have a tumor on your pituitary. So we're going to do an MRI. And at this point, I was like, best case scenario is I have a tumor, because if I don't have a tumor, I don't know what's
going on.
Right. So I'm like, please, tumor. You know what I mean? Because the whole plan.
At least I have an answer that has a solution.
Yeah. So, and his solution at the time, which is actually in turn checked out, but was I take medicine and it'll shrink. And sometimes you take medicine for the rest of your life. And sometimes you take medicine for a year or two and it shrinks and it's gone and it stays away. Sometimes it comes back. So it's something you monitor. So I do the MRI. I get it while I'm at school and I'm like, okay, like clearly there's a tumor. And one of the he's an RN that works with the student there, but he's with us at school to help the student. And I was like, hey, can you like look at this? And he was like, is this your brain? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, do you know you have a tumor? And I was like, totally. Yeah. And he was like, no, but like, it's taking up a lot, like 75% of your pituitary. Now, mind you, Dr. Spitz told me, based on my prolactin, it's probably just going to be like a small, like your pituitary is very small. But it's going to be really small on my pituitary based on my prolactin not being in the 500s.
Right.
So he was like, it's taking up like 75% of it. And I was like, is that a lot? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So meet with Dr. Spitz. He basically says, we're fearful it's this thing called stalk effect, which essentially the medicine will not work because the tumor's so big, it's pressing on the stalk and I can't receive it.
Yep.
So now I'm spiraling and I'm like, I have an appointment with a neurosurgeon that he recommended me to. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, and you know me, I'm like, okay, let's get the neurosurgery done tomorrow. Yeah. And so we can get back to life.
You really were like that.
Like,
you were
let's
like,
get
so
this
I don't know if I'm going to be here in June. And this is like mid-May.
But the way that he was talking about it was like, there wasn't another, because he seemed very adamant that the medicine, that this was stalk effect based on the other factors here. And so I was like, when I know something's lingering, I'm like, let's just do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Same.
So I'm like, rip this thing out.
Yeah.
So then he told me via my chart, they just send you, they just slide into my DMs on my chart. Literally. And they're like, hey, by the way, he was like, I consulted a pituitary specialist out of, Virginia Tech. And she says it could go either way because your prolactin's not off the charts. So he gives me the medicine. We start there. So I'm like, okay, cancel my neurosurgery appointment to consult with them. I have the medicine.
Thank God. I was like, thank God she doesn't have to do that. I was so relieved for you.
Yeah, because it was like a week. I mean, also, I don't think people realize that if it can also affect your vision. Right. So like, luckily I didn't have that as a symptom where my vision's blurred or like peripheral is affected. Right. But if it keeps getting bigger, which I'm like, how long? I've been with this thing for 2 years. Because I had asked the doctor, I said, if I lost my period like at the end of 2019, how long do you think? He's like, at least 2 years you've had this tumor. And I'm like, damn,
Which is
party at 2
wild.
for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
crazy. So we do blood work after about 2 weeks on the medicine, and my prolactin goes from 115 to 4.7. And I was like,
I know.
oh,
We
I
were
was
literally
so
doing like, she's voice memoing
I
me
was
again.
like-
I'm telling you, our voice memos are like books. Like
Yes.
we can write books about
I'm like, oh, this is 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Perfect. I was like, you're never going to believe we're in the single digits, baby.
I
Like,
know.
let's
I was
go.
like, yes, it's working.
So,
so happy
then like
for
a
you.
week later, I was a sixth grader again, got my period, and I've never been more elated to
The
be
voice
like,
memo
I
started
need
again first
a
thing in the
tampon. Like, excuse me. I was like,
she's hitting me with
you're
first thing in the
never-
morning. She's like, you're never going to believe what just happened to me. She's like, I got my period. I'm like,
I was
holy shit.
because also he had said that although your prolactin's lowered, it could be like a false effect of the medicine you're taking to lower it. So it doesn't equate to the tumor shrinking all the time. Now that I had the period, I was like, I feel very confident this tumor is shrinking.
Yeah.
So I'm now 2 periods later.
Yeah.
And the tumor, I'll know for sure. I have another MRI in September to kind of solidify that she is shrinking. And if she's not, then I feel like we'll just live together because everything else is working.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we can stay. That's fine. You've been paying rent
You
up
can pay
there.
rent up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it really was super insane. And I'm so thankful, God, for medicine and the fact that it's not stock effect and that I can receive it and that it wasn't this circumstance that I had to have the neurosurgery just because another thing that people love to say, which I know they're trying to be helpful and kind, but I'll be like, I think I have to have like brain surgery.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I looked it up and it's like very routine. And I'm like, shut the like,
oh, I did not know people were saying that
you
to you.
think like they think it's comforting to me
To say that, yeah.
But I'm like, do you want to go and have something drilled? Because I'm like, we got 2 options. They go through my nose or they go to the back of my skull. So like,
no, thank you.
neither one.
Nobody
you know what I
wants
mean?
that.
Like,
no.
okay, it's a routine pituitary neurosurgery. Like, what are you talking
they
about?
Get uncomfortable in those situations, and then they like don't really know what. They're trying to come up with a quick response. And so they don't, it's not always the appropriate response.
I'm sure I've done that to someone, but if you're listening out there and your friend has a pituitary tumor, go ahead and say like, damn, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then be like, do you want to get a coffee?
You know what I mean? With you.
Yeah.
Right. Like regardless of what the situation is, sometimes you just like, I'll be talking to Shane and something's bothering me and he loves to be Mr. Positive and he's like, I'm like, no. I actually need you to just like sit in it with me. Like, I don't need you to be positive. I just need you to tell me this sucks right now because
Come and
it does
wallow
suck.
right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, it's great to have people around you that are, always trying to see the positive and stuff like that. But I also think it's totally okay to not be okay, for a little bit.
Yeah, and so I just like to pack my schedule to just like kind of brush over the fact that I had it. I don't think I really was like, I don't really sit with much. I'm like, let me just jump on TikTok to fill my brain to not think about the things that are stressing me out. But yeah, it's okay to just be like, that sounds really scary. It's like, I don't feel like this is a comfortable thing to go through. Right. You know what I mean? So seems like Tim is shrinking.
Yay.
So I couldn't be more excited. So when I get like pressed about really dumb things like my kitchen backsplash, like things that really, the things that don't really matter, but like knowing that I'm going to more than likely avoid having to actually have the surgery.
Yeah. Huge relief.
I mean, I'm like, nothing should faze me now.
Nothing matters.
I know.
Yeah. Your health is your number one priority. And if you don't have health, you don't have anything.
Right.
I wanted to share this because I got some lab work done yesterday and I had no idea you can actually request your own lab work.
Oh.
So I'm sitting at LabCorp and they're getting—
Shout out to LabCorp.
Yeah. They're getting ready to draw blood, which was an order from my doctor. And I was like, hey, can you just let me know like what all is on the order? I didn't remember what all she had requested.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, these are all the things that are on there. And my DHEA has been repetitively low for the last, 5-6 months now. And so we upped how much of a DHEA supplement I'm taking. And I really wanted to see, it's been over a month, if it's making any difference in the levels. And so I said that to the girl who was drawing the blood and she was like, oh, you can request your own lab work. Like, do you want me to tell you how much it is? And I was like, oh, sure. I had no idea I could do this. And she's like, yeah. So she was like, I'll just take an extra vial of blood today. And it looks like it's going to be $49. And you can just request it on, it's called requestatest.com.
Okay.
And so I went to requestatest.com. There's a little search bar, typed in DHEA. LabCorp came up as a location immediately. I clicked on it, literally checked out while I was sitting in the chair. She took the extra vial of blood and just tested my DHEA for
I'm
me.
going to tell you what. One thing about Vanessa is she will do it herself.
Oh, I will figure it out.
Most self-sufficient. Like you don't need anyone else. You're like, doctors, no need. Let's go ahead and order these labs. So you're like, I got this, guys.
Right.
You're like, Google and I will solve this whole thing.
Yes, I'm very self-sufficient, very self-motivated.
Yes.
Like if somebody tells me no, I'm like, oh, I'll just figure out how to do it myself.
Yeah.
Don't worry. You know?
Yes, you
and
are.
Like, you are more effort for me to argue with to get this done than it is for me to figure out how to do it myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to share that just because she was like, oh yeah, that's not common knowledge. I'm like, no, I don't think anybody knows.
It's crazy
you
how
can do
little
that.
we know about a lot of things regarding our health.
And I think with hormones and stuff like that, and even like outside of hormones, like vitamin D levels, your magnesium levels, just like simple, your B vitamin, like simple vitamin levels, you can test any of that. And I know, you know, magnesium deficiency is a really big one. Vitamin D deficiency is a really big one. So if you just want to kind of know, you know, you want a picture of where you're at, that's an avenue that you can take that is super easy. So just a little tip.
The more you know.
Right. And I was like, I got to share this with people because this is a big deal.
Yeah. Like I said, if anyone's going to find something out, it's going to be you. You're going to do the research.
Right. If you ever need to know how to do anything. We were laughing about this. I told Kristen sometimes I feel like I'm just like going through life and I have all these massive ideas and I'm just winging it and hoping it works out. And like it has all worked out for me.
Correct.
But I also think that's because I am, contrary to my husband, we have this conversation all the time. I am a risk taker. And so I like look at things and I'm like, okay, if I do this and it doesn't work out, my loss is this, but that's okay because, you know, I can afford to have that loss.
Yeah.
But if I do this and it turns out to be a win, like this will impact our lives, you know, this much.
Right.
And so I think I just have the personality type where I will never be okay with accepting the loss, even though in my head I had something like, it's okay if it doesn't work out. I will work and I will grind and I will talk to all the people and like make the connections and figure out how I can be successful at what I'm putting my mind to.
Yeah.
Whereas Shane is like very risk averse. And so he has all these big, great ideas that I'm like, do it. I believe in you. You should do it. Like what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Like put one foot forward and like, let's just get the ball rolling, you know?
Right.
And he's just so risk averse that like he has the idea, but he has a really hard time kind of putting that in motion.
Yeah.
So our relationship is interesting because I'm constantly the one being like, hey, I'm going to do this. And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, let's talk about that.
Let's wait this out.
And I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. You know? So,
and I'm behind you like, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, you're always like, yeah, let's get the damn thing done. Like, we're going to do this. Let's mood board it. You know?
I'm straight up like, when are we getting an office? When are we getting a storefront? You know what I mean?
I know. So yeah, I mean, it's just difference in personality types too. I think, you know, you have people who are very like risk driven and then you have people who are very risk averse, but I also think it's the yin and yang in our relationship. That's what kind of makes things tick.
Are we yang and yang then? Because I feel like we're very similar.
We're definitely yang and yang. We're both like balls to the wall, like we're doing it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it doesn't work out.
Forgiveness. Yeah.
But anyway, this was so fun.
Yes.
I feel like we could literally talk for 3 more hours.
Absolutely.
We absolutely could.
We will probably off of the mic. So.
We absolutely will. But yeah, thanks for coming on and sharing your story. I hope that, you know, everybody enjoyed this. And if there's anything else that you want to know about, any questions you have for Kristen, anything else about the business of blogging, hit us in the DMs.
Yeah.
You can post a comment on our little trailer of this episode. But with that, we will see you next week.